So let's talk about your first deal. Chapter 6, let's talk about your first deal. Let me show you what your first deal should look like so you have a specific criteria that you're looking for and don't waste time on deals that won't be good for you. Pay attention to this recipe and your first deal has a better chance of being a winner than a loser. Before I walk through the criteria on your first deal, let me give you some basic terms so that when I'm talking about them, you get accustomed to hearing these terms and using them to understand your financial statement, your purchase, the exit. I'll just go over those terms now. Gross rental income, GRI. This is the total possible income if every unit is rented at the full price. This figure is typically used, or you'll see it on a statement used by a broker or in an OM, an operating memorandum, and is almost meaningless. Okay. Now that being said, let me just say that if the gross rental income is 800 times 32 units, that's $25,600. I know that that's the max number that I can get from the GRI, right? I might look at that and say, well, where are we right now? We're getting maybe 90% or 88% or 85% of the gross rental income. Wow, what if I could improve the property? Can I raise the rents? So while I say that this number is meaningless on a financial statement, look, what I mean by that is the number that matters is the number we collect. But when you're trying to buy something to make sense of something and or sell something, you're gonna buy it based on, hey, I think I can get it back to this number or above that. And when you're selling it, you're definitely going to tell people, hey, we're under managing the property. Look, we're only hitting 88% of our GRI. When you come in, because you're going to be a better manager, you get the point? Okay, effective gross income. And by the way, you should be looking at a financial statement while I read these terms off so you can see where on the financial statement these terms lie. EGI, effective gross income. This is the amount of rental income collected. This is a very, very important number. Now you got to know how to think with this number, like all these terms. You got to think with that particular number, the EGI. This is the amount of rental income actually collected. But why? Why was it this number? Okay, is there something that's going on in the property that should make or could make it closer to the total gross potential income that you could collect, okay? Why? You want to always look at why is it this number what it is. Now, the EGI is what the deal is. I mean, unless you think that every property you buy, you're going to be the better manager, you're going to be the perfect collector, you're going to be the perfect picker of a tenant, that EGI, when I buy something, I assume I'm never going to manage something better. I would love to be surprised because I bought it. All of a sudden, people wanted to pay me more. All of a sudden, the people that were late want to pay me on time. All of a sudden, the people that were struggling with their rent now suddenly come into all this money and they're like, we just want to pay you, Mr. Landlord, more money. I would like to believe that, but the reality is you're going to probably manage the property somewhere in that same little range below or just a tad better than the last guy. Okay, other income. Other income means collections from things other than rent. Utility reimbursements, like water, gas, electricity, if you can collect for those things. Laundry, application fees, late fees, pet fees. That's right. People will pay more for their doggy than they will for a lot of other things. Parking, valet, trash, VIP parking. These numbers can indicate also, when you see them on a financial statement, they can indicate, hey, I got a problem. Maybe you had collections that are too high, or you got late fees that are too high, or you have concessions that are too high, or you don't have trash and VIP parking. You're like, why don't you guys pick up the trash for the tenant and charge them $18 or $19 or $22 a month? Don't let the tenant take their trash out to the trash can. They throw it over the little thing. Half of it falls in, half of it falls out. They drag it. Don't do that. Charge them to pick up their trash. They'll be happy that you did. So look for other income as opportunities and an indication of problems. Expenses. What are the expenses of a property? Expenses can be variable or invariable, right? They can be things that can shift, or they can be things that are going to be there no matter what, like your taxes. Your taxes are going to be there. You can't get away from. The variable expenses are bringing other people in. Other things that are variable that can shift or change. Expenses from the normal operations of the property, basically. Basically, things like anything having to do with keeping the property going. You're going to have an electric bill. You're going to have a gas bill. You're going to have a water bill. You're going to have taxes. You're going to have a manager. You're going to have advertising and marketing. This expense column will not include major capital improvements like a new roof or new floors or a new clubhouse. Those are called capital improvements. It will also, expenses will not include, typically will not include the debt. My principal and interest payments are not considered an expense. Why? Because I didn't have to do that. Okay? Marketing, advertising, turning the lights on, the water, signage, those things have to be done with the operation, okay? Some things don't have to be done. I didn't have to borrow money to buy the property. I could have paid cash for it. So that number would go. The debt and major capital improvements would go on a lower line below the expenses. Which brings me to NOI. NOI is the net operating income of the property. This is a very, 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 very important calculation to understand. This represents your effective gross income. That's your EGI, less your operating expenses before your debt. If you're looking at your EGI, if you're looking at your NOI, this is your gross potential, then you're going to see your effective gross income, then you're going to see all your expenses, and then you're going to see your net operating income. On your statement, you could see 2 or 3 different net operating incomes. Net operating income after debt, net operating income after capital expenses. Go back over your financial statement, get in your workbook, and say, hey, where's that NOI number? Where's the expense number? Where do the taxes go? Where do the property taxes go? Where's my EGI sit? Where does my gross income sit? Where does my EGI sit? Look at your financial statement and see where each one of these sits on that financial statement. Cap rate. Now this represents, and you're going to hear cap rate thrown around everywhere. This represents the rate of return your property would pay you as an investor if there was no debt. Now the NOI, the cap rate is figured based on the NOI divided by the price you paid for the property. So look, in your book it says it's calculated by subtracting the expenses from the EGI, okay? That's actually a misprint. It's saying the NOI is calculated by subtracting expenses from the EGI. Your cap rate is figured, you basically take the cap rate, you take the NOI and you divide it into the price you paid. Okay? So let's say the NOI is $100,000 and the price I paid was $1 million. I would take the $100,000, divide it into the price I paid, $1 million, and I would say, hey, I got a 10 cap. Right? By the way, if you get a 10 cap, run as fast as you can because there's something wrong with this neighborhood. How do I get to the NOI? I take the expenses from the EGI and I come up with my NOI. How do I come up with my cap rate? I take the NOI and I divide it right there by the price I paid, and that's how I come up with it. Effective gross income, let's say it's $95,000, my expenses are $30,000, my NOI is $65,000. Do the math. Okay? How do I figure what my cap rate is? If I paid $1 million and the property pays me $65,000 in NOI, my cap rate is 6.5%. 6.5% return on the money that I invested if I paid cash. Okay, remember the cap rate is always a cash calculation if you paid cash. Now, if you have a 6.5 cap rate, because the next term that we're going to cover is leverage, if I have a 6.5 cap rate and a 4.5% interest rate, if the interest rate is lower than the cap rate, then I'm going to actually make more money and my cap rate, my return on investment will explode anytime the interest rate is lower than the cap rate. And I use leverage, what will happen is my return will increase. Watch that again. Understand what I just shared with you, okay? When the cap rate is higher than the interest rate, and I now use leverage, remember the cap rate's figured on cash. When I use leverage and the interest rate, see this difference right here? 4.5%, 6.5 cap rate. See these 2 points right here? I'm being paid 2% for the money that I borrowed. I'm being paid 2% on somebody else's money. So my 6.5 cap rate should go 6.5 plus 2, somewhere short of 8%. Okay, as a calculation. Okay, leverage. This is referred to, and I mean, this is why I love borrowing money against multifamily, against income property. I can take a $90 million piece of real estate, and put $32 million down and finance 62. Okay, that's leverage. This is referred to as the benefit the investor gains by owning more assets than they paid for. If it's $90 million, I put $30 million down. What did I pay for the property? I financed $60 million. You paid $90 million. No, I paid $30 million for a $90 million piece of property. Okay, that's called leverage. Now, I get two benefits of that. One, I put $30 million down, or let's say it's $1 million. I put $1 million down and bought a $3 million property. That's leverage. $1 million bought me $3 million. But the other leverage is the improvement on my return. Okay, remember in the last example, a 6.5 cap rate, a 4.5% interest rate. I'm being paid 2 points in this example on the money I borrowed. On the money I borrowed. Most people can't even get paid 0.5% at the bank on money they can't even get. Okay, you have $1 million in a bank account at your bank and you get paid 0.5 point. I'm being paid 2% on the difference of the money I borrowed. If this is freaking mind-boggling to you, by the way, right? If you're like, wow, whoa, what just happened here, right? Do you need to go back and look at your financial statement and get your head wrapped around this? You ain't a rubber band. And if you're a rubber band, that means you're being stretched and pulled and you don't know what you're doing. You need to get your head wrapped tight around this thing. If I use debt in the example I just went over, watch and see how the percentage return increases on the cash I invested, called leverage. Okay, so let's take the EGI of $95,000. What's EGI? EGI is the effective gross income. It's how much dough we collected. All right? I'm going to take my expenses off of this. Remember what expenses run at? I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 44%. Should be somewhere in that range, right? Let's say it's $30,000. Did I hit that number? Oh, pretty close to that number. Isn't that about, what, 30%? Yeah, it's a little lower than it should be. Maybe not. Check out. Find out what it is. Should it be more than that, okay? Let's assume I paid $1 million for this property. There's my sales price, okay? The NOI now is $65,000. That's how you figure out your cap rate, 6.5. Divide $65,000. If you paid cash for the property, you borrowed, your NOI is 65. That's your return. This is your income. This is your expenses. This is your return. If you paid cash. NOI always assumes, remember, NOI always assumes that you paid cash. So when the broker's telling you I got a 6.5% return, it's a 6.5 cap rate, okay? If I borrow money, and that money costs me 4.5%, and that money costs me, let's say I borrow, I don't know, how much would I borrow? $700,000. Let's say I put $300,000 down, and I borrow $700,000 worth of money here. I put 30% down. I didn't over leverage. Remember what I said a few minutes ago. I'm going to be paid, if there's 2 points of difference here, 6.5 cap and a 4.5% interest rate. I'm being paid 2 points on $700 million that isn't my money. Let me just bring you to the math. That's going to cost about $39,000 a year. I think that's right. Let me just take $700,000 times 4.5. 700,000 times 0.045. $31,500. I must have used a higher interest rate in the book, okay? But I'm going to stay with this because this is the example I used in the book. So this is going to be $26,000. I earned $26,000 on how much down? $300,000 down. Okay? These numbers are chasing this right now. 300,000 divided by 26,000. I'm sorry, 26,000 divided by $300,000 that I put down. That's an 8.6 return. 8.6% return. Remember, I told you I was going to pick up a couple of points here. I'm paying 4.5% for the money. I'm getting 8.6% on a deal that should only return me 6.5. How can I get 8.6% return on a deal that the broker said was a 6.5 on cap? That, my friends, is called leverage. Leverage. I'm being paid 2.1 points for money, right, that I borrowed from somebody else. It's magic. Okay, it's the value of leverage. This is how you get rich. This is called OPM, other people's money. Okay? A lot of people think that what we do at Cardone Capital, they're like, oh, Cardone Capital, you're getting money from other people. You're getting money from the little guy. Dude, I am the little guy. Don't be stupid. I am the little guy giving other little guys an opportunity to take advantage of the big guys. I'm borrowing big money from big banks and picking up the 2 points. I'm picking up the 2 points on Goldman Sachs. I'm picking it up on the banks, the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Mac's. I'm not picking it up on the back of little guys. When I do a deal that's $90 million, okay, I'm doing a deal right now for $92 million. I'm putting $32 million down, right? I'm making my money off this guy, not my investors. Make it off the big guy. Dude, where can I make all my money? I can make all my money right here, right? I get leverage. If I don't make any money on this right here, and I will, by the way, because my partners share with me, this is where I want to make my money. That's why I work so hard to make sure this interest rate is as low as possible. Okay, I'll give you an example. I just borrowed money. The market's about 4.5%. I borrowed money at 4.3%. Okay? Doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? Oh no, it's not a big deal until you're doing it over $600 million. And then 2 bips is a big deal. Okay? The value of leverage, the investor, you and I picked up 2 points by borrowing money from the bank. That might not seem like a bunch to you, but notice you were paid again half the cash. You were paid half the cash, but only put down 30% of the money, and you have $700,000 left to invest in another deal or buy bigger deals. Okay? So in this example right here, I could have paid $92 million for this deal. But I didn't. I put $32 million down and I control it. That's leverage. I now have $62 million more to go buy other real estate. Which, by the way, $62 million, rather than paying cash for one deal, $62 million should buy me another $186 million in real estate. Leverage. When the interest rate you borrow, remember, when the interest rate you borrow is lower than the cap rate, you will increase the return to you and your investors. The bigger the spread between the two, the bigger the return to the investor. Cap rate. When the cap rate is greater than the interest rate, you increase your return to the investor. Simply said, cap rate greater than interest rate equals return to the money. Okay, return to investors. Okay, let's talk about vacancy. How does the vacancy move into this, and where would that number go? Okay, so let's say my gross income, my potential gross income is $100,000 a month. And let's say my vacancy on that property is 10%. It's $10,000. You're probably going to have a concessions line here. You're going to probably have some other lines right here. And then you're going to have, hey, I'm collecting $90,000. Vacancy is the pro forma produced by the broker and also by the existing owner. May show the amount of vacancy. This number is abstract. Most of the time it's made up. It's garbage, just like I threw it on the board right there. It's a meaningless number because if it is vacant, it wasn't collected. However, by paying attention to it, you can learn trends of the property or where there's mismanagement. Okay? Cash on cash calculation. One of the most important calculations is this. Cash on cash. How much dough did the deal pay me? Because at the end of the day, the percentage doesn't matter as much as the money. I had a guy tell me, man, I'm getting 40%. I'll get a 40% return. 40%? I said, yeah, but how much money is $200 a month? Well, that's awesome, dude. I mean, 200 is still 200. Like, what are you talking about? Once you run around town saying, I made $200 this month. Now, I'm not making fun of $200 because $200 is important, but notice what the guy was doing. A 40% return. Okay? Well, dude, it could be 100% return, but $1 is $1. Okay? Like, if it's only $1, it might not be worth you doing it. I could go to my closet or my kid's closet and I could steal money from their piggy bank and have 1,000% return. but it's still just $1. Okay? Cash on cash. The calculation based on the cash invested only. This is calculated by dividing the free cash. Okay? The cash. I gave you an example. Let me see this example I gave you back here. Okay? Remember the $26,000? $26,000 of free cash flow, $26,000 of free cash flow, and I put $300,000 in. At the end of the day, look, this is the money you can spend. The rest of it is crossing your fingers and waiting for the lottery to come in. Free cash flow is divided by free cash. That's cash not obligated to anything, divided by the down payment. Okay? $26,000 of free cash flow, as shared in the example earlier, divided by the $300,000 I put down. And that would tell me my return, cash on cash, in a percentage. CapEx. CapEx is the expenditure on items not considered normal or recurring. Things that you won't do over and over. Okay? Maybe floors. Floors could be that. A roof would be that. Okay, a clubhouse would be that. Maybe you're going to tarmac, or not a tarmac. You're going to slurry coat the concrete in the driveway, and you're going to make it look better. Maybe you're going to paint. All those would be CapEx expenditures. It's not something you're doing every month or every quarter or every year, but every once in a while. CapEx, capital improvements. The exit. I talk about the exit a lot because without an exit, why'd you get in the deal if you can't get out? Okay? How are you as an owner going to sell your property? This requires you to calculate not only what the next buyer can pay and still get a return on. This is vital. This is what I know experts that forget this. Okay? We're going to buy it for this and we're going to sell it for this and we're going to make this much money. But dude, if I can't get a loan on that deal in 5 years, I'm your buyer. I'm your target to buy it from you. If I can't get a loan, I can't buy it from you. So a lot of people, when they go to do their exit, it's all in their heads. Oh, we're going to earn 3% a year. Every year is going to go up. And 3% times 5 and 15. Oh, my God, we're going to make a bunch of money. Who can buy it? What's the debt going to be like then? How much money will I have to put down? What will my return be when I buy it from you in the future? Lots of amateur investors miss this calculation because they only look, because they're selfish, at their own calculations for operations and never figure out when I sell to Johnny, Johnny's going to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and say, hey, let me see, boom, boom, there's no money here, man. By the way, even if Johnny's stupid, okay, even if Johnny's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, Johnny's going to go to the bank and have to get a loan, and the bank's going to be like, hey, Johnny, click, click. Johnny, there's no money to be made here. You can't even pay the debt here. Which means what? Johnny wants to buy it, but can't because the bank's going to say, no, that won't work. Oh, by the way, we're in an environment now, do I say by the way a lot? I probably do. You know why? Because I have a lot of afterthoughts. I don't ever write by the way in the book. Very seldom anyway. We should do a search on that. Okay? The bank is going to tell you you're not in an environment right now where you can over leverage on deal. The bank will not let Johnny go do something stupid. The bank is your friend. Interest only. Have you ever heard this term, IO? Maybe you'll see it sent to you from a lender. Hopefully you will. Interest only loans exist in the market today. I know people that get 10 and 12 years of interest only. These are good operators that have proven with Fannie and Freddie and the life insurance companies they can operate properties. By the way, almost anybody can get an interest-only loan as long as you pay down that debt enough. As long as you prepay, put enough money down at purchase, and you can extend how much time you can get interest only. Yeah, this is where you only pay down interest on the loan, in which case you don't pay it down. You just pay interest on the total, and you don't pay the principal down. If you put enough down at the time of purchase, this is considered a prepayment on the principal pay down and will allow the lender to give you an interest-only loan. You might even ask the bank or your lender, hey, dude, if I increase my down payment, if I lower my leverage, how much IO can you give me? Okay, stretch for as much IO as you can get, by the way. It will provide you with more cash flow. Principal and interest. This is what most of you pay on a mortgage on a house. You pay the principal and interest. Principal and interest refers to the main loan, that is the principal pay down, and the interest to the lender for that loan. Each payment to the bank then includes interest and a tad bit of principal pay down, so that over 30 years, your house will be paid for. So says Uncle Dave. Your house is going to be paid for when you're 87 years old. It will be paid for, and it will be your little piggy bank. Okay, it's not a piggy bank if you got to live in it. It's a house. Okay, and the house needs paint, and the house needs carpets. And by the way, who wants to live at the same address for 30 years? I like living in new places, frankly. Okay, you take a vacation once a year, you get all excited, but live in the same house for 30 years, then you wonder why your marriage is over. All right, so look, you take your loan amount, right? And typically what happens is about 1 to 2% of your loan is paid down per year, and the rest of it is going to interest. Okay, it's called P&I, principal and interest. Which brings me to a very, very important terminology called DCR, the debt coverage ratio. This is your lender's term that represents the fact that your income from operations is greater than the debt you're paying the bank. So I'm going to cover this more in depth at a later time, but I do want to show you with my beautiful magic board, Johnny. Okay? DCR, look, DCR is not something the bank's going to figure for you. The DCR is something you need to use to figure out what the bank's going to lend you on the loan. Okay? Typically, you're going to see a DCR of 115 to about 130 maybe. Okay? Okay. The DCR, in this case, let's say today's market is about a 125. Okay? This means that if you have $100,000 worth of debt, principal and interest debt, and by the way, it will always be figured on your P&I. $100,000 worth of P&I. The bank is going to tell you your NOI needs to be $125,000. Now, all of you out there yawning right now saying, oh, man, I don't know what he's talking about again. You have to know this, okay? Let me tell you why. Because if you're trying to sell or buy on either side, you have to know, if I'm selling this thing to Johnny, Johnny's going to go to the bank, and the bank's going to say, like, hey, man, you got to put down like half the money to get to that. Okay? You might want to look at that deal. So when your NOI is going to control how much debt you can pay. Right? So your NOI less your debt equals your cash on cash. The bank needs to know that you got a pad. You got a spread. That spread can be smaller or it can be larger. The bigger the numbers get, the bigger the spread he wants between the NOI and your debt. Again, the debt's always figured, even if you have interest only. Man, this is such good material. God, I wish I'd have had this information when I was buying. Okay? The NOI, the net operating income, less the debt is your cash. Cash on cash. Okay? The lender is concerned about this number. They're concerned about being paid back. So that NOI needs to be 125% of the debt, right? So if let's say I have debt of $80,000, or let's say I have debt of $50,000. That's my P and I. Even if I'm paying interest only, and let's say interest only is only $40,000, the bank's going to still figure based on this number. And let's say the debt coverage they need is a 125. How much does the NOI need to be in order for the bank to give me that loan? Let's say the NOI right here is $60,000. The bank is going to say this. Hey, dude, we're good. We love the property appraised. We like the property. We want to lend on the property. It's constrained by you're a 120. That's a 120. 50,000 if you divide, see what I'm saying? If I multiply the $50,000 by 120, I'll get $60,000. It's debt constrained. It needs an NOI of 125 would be $62,500. Would need to be your NOI here to get that loan, whatever $50,000 in this case would represent. Okay. Again, you can learn all this by asking questions to your lender. You just need to have enough data so that you can talk intelligently to your lender. Like you need to ask your lender how much you want down. That's one thing. What's the interest rate? Good. How much interest only? And by the way, what is your D, C, and your R? People talk about, oh, my building appraised. I can get almost everything to appraise. Okay. What you need to know is what's your DCR, okay, and what yield maintenance, what yield do you use to figure your DCR? Because like Fannie Mae will lend me money at 4.5%. Today they'll lend me money at 4.5, but check this out. They're going to figure the DCR coverage at like 7%. Now again, this is not in the book, but I'm just giving you in this workbook so you can start thinking with all the data. Okay, I said, hey man, this is a simple entry-level book for people buying multifamily. The goal of this book was to educate people to quit buying stuff that won't fund. I'm going to walk into your first deal criteria here in a second. But see, if Fannie or the bank, you want to ask them, hey, what's your yield net maintenance? Okay, what's your yield coverage here? What yield do you use to figure out your DCR? In this case, they're putting so much padding in these deals to protect themselves that they're not figuring the deal at 4.5%. To figure out the actual DCR, you'd have to know what the yield they're stressing your deal with. Okay, all right. Hope that didn't lose you. Okay. Hope that didn't lose you. By the way, if you're listening to this right now, I was smiling when I said that, okay? Because in reality, you're going to get lost in the beginning. You just need to go back over the material, okay? So let's just break it down. What's your first deal going to look like? A to Z. Here's some criteria that if you follow this and evaluate your first deal based on the criteria I'm going to give you, I can almost ensure that you're going to make money. The more of these you can include on your first deal, the better chance you have of finding a deal that will make you, your investors, your family money. Okay? A, the deal needs to be 16 units or more. I would prefer it to be 32 units. All right? I'll probably come back to the board here in a second, but 16 units, I'd prefer 32 no matter how much you're tempted to buy smaller deals. I get a lot of heat and a lot of hate for this. Oh, Grant, he's out of touch with the little guy, little guy. I'm trying to keep you from being the little guy, okay? Little guys do dumb things. Like you're not going to the store. You're not a kid going to the store buying something that fits in your pantry. This is a big deal. You're making a major investment, okay? You're not buying a car. You're buying an apartment complex. Okay, just because you can afford a Civic, maybe you don't need to be in the business right now. Don't you need to buy something that you can be with for 8 years or 10 years or 12 years. 16 units or more, prefer 32. No matter how much you're tempted, I cannot tell you this enough times. The most important number in all of apartments, in apartment investing or storage or office, the number that is most vital is the number of units. This is your force multiplier. It's referred to in other businesses as scaling. That's today's popular terminology, scaling. Without scaling units, it is almost impossible to score, much less have a big score. Okay, B, you need to love the property. You need to love the location when you first visit. You need to love the property when you first visit. You don't need to love it the second time or the third time or the fourth time. All you're doing is making sense of it. Now you're just trying to, oh, I love this about it. You need to love it as soon as you see it, okay? And you need to make sense of it after you love it. You don't need to not love it and make sense of it because it'll never work. Some properties just don't have whatever it takes, like people. Okay? No matter what, they just don't have it, and the same with property. Some properties just don't have it. Avoiding bad deals, by the way, is sometimes the most important, maybe more important than finding the great deals. Avoiding bad deals, listen to what I'm telling you, avoiding bad deals, tweet me on this, avoiding bad deals is sometimes as important as finding great ones. To develop the skill, you have to walk thousands of units to know the difference between something that makes money and you'll hate and something that gushes money and you'll love. Also remember this. Love is required on the exit. You gotta love it when you buy it, and the next guy's gotta love it. He'll pay extra for it when you sell it. C, you need to be cash flow positive without improving. You should be 4 to 6% on your cash invested before you start talking about improving the property. Cash flow is the holy grail of all investing. Truth is, cash flow is the holy grail of all businesses and probably the least understood of all the terminologies, even though it's the most simple. Positive cash flow is what will determine whether or not you have the ability to hold the property during bad times, and by itself, cash flow is what will determine the exit value on the way out. It will determine how much loan the next guy can get. It will determine whether you can get through bad times. It will determine how much money you can reinvest in the property, and it will determine how much the next dude or dudess will pay you to take it from you. Okay, D. You should use debt on your first deal. And you should not exceed 75% loan to value. Don't pay cash for your apartments. Do not pay cash for your apartments. Do not pay cash for your deal. I don't want the debt. Don't buy the deal then. Okay? If you don't want debt, don't play this game. Okay? This is not Dave Ramsey. By the way, I have mad respect for Dave. Some people think I don't like Dave. I do like Dave. But this is not Dave Ramsey investing. The debt used to buy apartments is good debt. This is great debt. And it should be used over and over and over again. Even when I start to pay something down, I'll go back and look for every opportunity to leverage it up again. Never over leverage. Stay in the 65 to 75% debt to value range and don't exceed that. Debt paid down by others is like a gift from the gods. E is A through Z. I'm giving you what you got to have. The more of these you can have, the better off you're going to be. Straight from me. They call me GC. E, have an active manager on property. This is not your job to manage the property. Okay? You're not going to set this up with some automated line. You can't have three properties managed by one guy. Call me on the weekends. We're out. You need an active manager, well paid on the property. You need someone on site that's knowledgeable and is paid fairly or better than fairly. Do not skimp on the manager. A manager that is underpaid will steal from you. I've even made managers equity partners in deals. Family members make awful managers. Not in every case, but almost every case. Trust me. Family members make bad managers. You know why? Maybe they're going to be a good manager for me, but they're going to be a bad manager for you because they're your brother. And you just cannot tell your brother over and over what to do before he hates you. I can tell him because I'm paying him. And he's not my brother. People that have been on properties for too long, by the way, hint, make bad managers. Listen to what I'm telling you. People that have been on one property for too long can become bad managers. As crazy as that might seem, okay? They get Stevie Wonder syndrome. They just can't see anymore. They fall in love with the people that live there, and they can't go to Betty and say, Betty, I need another $75 a month, because that's what the market said you need to pay. Even consider making your manager a sweat equity partner. I mentioned this earlier. Make them a percentage owner when the property hits a certain NOI. That would be a great investment. F. Keep your debt coverage, DCR, at 125. Okay? This DCR, even if the bank will let you go lower, this DCR will probably be required by your bank anyway, but never go below the 125 on your first deals. This means your NOI will exceed the total debt by at least 25%. $100,000 worth of principal and interest would therefore require how much NOI? 125. Okay. G. Set aside $250 to $300 per unit per year, even if the bank doesn't. Set that aside in a CapEx escrowed bank account. Okay. Set aside $250 to $300 per unit per year for future rehab and renovation problems, situations. This will also be required by the lender, typically is required by the lender, but you should insist on at least that number being set aside, even if the bank doesn't ask for to handle any unplanned property improvements. H, have your actual insurance quote done before you close on this deal. You might even want to have it done before you write an LOI. You should have an actual quote on your real estate before going under contract, definitely before under debt. The bank's going to require it. Definitely before under contract. I don't mean an estimate. Call your guy up and say, hey, need a firm quote, something you'll live by. Also, make sure you check for the food, for the feud, for the flood zone. I can't even say it. It scares me so much. Food, feud, flood. Okay? Floods are not good. Ask people in Houston. Floods are not good. Okay? I, assume increases in property taxes at full rates. When you buy, remember, I'm buying from Johnny. Johnny's selling me a deal for $1 million. Johnny paid $500,000 for it. That means Johnny was taxed at $500,000 in Texas for interest, okay, or maybe in Florida. He's paying property taxes on $500,000. I'm paying property taxes on $1 million. So my property taxes are going to blow up. They're going to get all swole like my biceps, okay? Now, in other states, for instance, I'm in Arizona. Property taxes in Arizona go up 5% a year based on last year's assessment. When calculating your taxes, you're best to estimate them at the full price or full assessment. Do not be tempted by the real estate agent's pro forma, code for exaggeration, suggesting anything less than a full assessment on the taxes. J, use 40% or more as your expense calculation, even if it is verified and validated that you can operate for less than 40, man. Look, be surprised. Be happy that you got a little surprise. Work your deal out at 40, okay? The bank's going to help you anyway. The lender's going to help you. The lender's going to look at expenses. He's going to know what the normal or operating expenses are in the market. Any calculation, however, used below the 40 is naive and irresponsible. When making estimates, always use 40 to 50%. I could shift a little bit. Back of the napkin as your worst case scenario. It'll never let you down. 8. K. Assume no increase in the EGI, the effective gross income. The real estate agent and the seller are going to try to convince you, just like I would, that the property will produce higher rents in the future, which it probably will, but I don't want you to use that. While this is true, yes, do not assume an increase in the E, G, and I is going to happen. It's better, again, to be surprised in a positive way than to be disappointed because you were overly optimistic. Attitude is everything. Yeah, not in real estate. Don't kid yourself. Attitude is not everything, okay? If you're optimistic about everything, you're going to get backhand, front hand punched out, okay? L, have obvious repair costs for the next 36 months in reservo, at closo. You looked around, man, I got trees I got to remove. Good. I got siding that's got to get pulled off. I got paint that's got to get done. I need a roof. I got parking. I got fences. I got walls. I got issues. We got polyurethane in the plumbing that's got to go to. Dude, put all that money aside, okay? So raise the $300,000 you need, plus whatever it takes for the roofs, the plumbing, the siding, the paint, the parking. Set it aside. Never lose a piece of property because you can't take care of it. Buy great property, even in great locations that might need some work. In 30 years, I've never lost a piece of property. I watched all my friends go broke, except for one other guy. Me and him. The two dudes that didn't over-leverage. They kept money in reserve for repairs. The two dumbos, the two conservative guys, are the ones that kept everything and kept buying stuff when they were losing stuff. The people around me thought I was being negative. I wasn't being negative, man. I don't want to lose money. Number one rule in investing is don't lose money. How do you do that? Have set-asides for your business. You guys have money set aside for cancer. You got money set aside for health. You got money set aside for accident. You got money set aside for a rainy day, but you don't have any money set aside for a roof. Don't be stupid, man. Okay? Your mama said, set some money aside for a rainy day. Dude, don't set it for the rainy day. Set it for the roof. Okay? Come on. What you doing? Because when it rains, you need a roof that don't leak. M. Know what your break-even occupancy is. This is your worst-case break-even scenario. When buying a deal, plan for the worst and know what % occupied gets you back to break-even. Then look back over history and see if that property, over any period of time, has ever gotten that low. Give you something to think about. And know your financial statement by heart. You should not have to refer to the financial statement to understand the financial statement. You need to look over that thing and you need to have it imprinted in your brain. If you do not have, what's that thing called when you look at something and can't forget it? You have a photographic memory. Even if you don't, like I don't, have a photographic memory, I study that financial statement, man, till I know every number on that thing by heart. By the way, I have hundreds of them sit in my head. Ask me about a property. Del Mar, $4.6 billion NOI. Okay? I mean, I just know them. I know deals that I sold years ago, what the NOI was. Okay? I know them because I looked at them so much because I'm so worried when I buy them, right? I'm so responsible. Another word for worried about your finances. I'm so responsible. I want to know, okay, if I tweak this happens. What happens? What's my DCR? What's my debt? What's my cash flow? What's my cash on cash? How am I going to return the money to myself and my investors? Okay, so I know the financial statement on my deals like I know the voice of my children. Okay, and you need to know the same. I don't need to see my kid's face to know which one I'm talking to. Okay, O. Use a broker on your first deal. Do not use a broker. If you don't use a broker, you will never get the best deals. Use a broker on the deal. I don't have a broker's license. I'm not fighting for brokers. Use the broker. Okay? Brokers are valuable connections to sellers. And they're even more valuable to you when you exit. You never try to be your own broker to save a fee. It's penny wise and dollar foolish. Even if I had a broker license, I would use a broker. I'm not trying to save a half a point or a point or a point and a half. I want to max my proceeds out, and I don't want a broker in the market talking bad about my property. Never try to be your own broker to save a fee. It's dumb. Okay, be an investor, not the broker. I always use a broker to negotiate even off-market deals on the buy and the sell. P. P is for profit. Walk and create folders on at least 25 deals before you buy the first one if you want the P. I look at hundreds of deals to buy one. Anything short of this is lazy and irresponsible. There's no book. This book is not more valuable. My book, John's book, Lynn's book, the great real estate book of all time. No book is more valuable than you walking deals and collecting folders. In the future, I will share with you what we put in our folders. The best education on your next deal is in all the deals you have walked, collected data on, and did not buy. Deals that I don't buy prepare me for deals that I can buy. Q. Produce at least $24,000 a year cash flow regardless of the cash on cash percentage. This is vital. You need at least $2,000 a month cash on the cash. If you're doing your first deal by yourself, if it doesn't pay you $24K a year, leave it alone. Your first deal must produce at least $2,000 of net cash flow monthly after management, after debt, after all expenses, for you to even consider spending time and energy on your first deal. The reason this is important is if you don't invest in deals that are big enough to produce this kind of cash flow, if you invest in deals that are too small, you are wasting your time. And you're not going to be able to weather the storm because that deal is not going to be, when things get terrible, that deal will not be big enough, will not provide you with enough cash flow for you to warrant spending time on it. If it doesn't make at least $24K, that should be your target investment. It's going to be more of a bother than a solution. It's going to take away from your main job. or your second job, and this won't be an investment anymore. It'll be like a prison. Or have minimal $25, $50, and $75 rent increase potentials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out my performa. I'm going to look at my worst case scenarios. Everything's going to be worst case. By the way, R is where I get a little positive. Okay, I'm going to look at my N, O, and my I, my net operating income. I'm going to take my worst case scenario. I'm going to look at my debt off my N, my O, and my I, and then I'm going to say, hey, what if I could raise $25 rent, $50 rent, and $75 rent increases? And I'm just going to add that number to my N, my O, and my I. I'm actually not going to expense those numbers. Check out what I'm doing right here. Okay? Let's say I got 100 units and I got an NOI that's going to return me $24,000 a year. It's going to make me 24 grand. It hits the DCR. Everything's cool. Everything's great on it, okay? And then I'm like, man, let's say I got 32 units here. What did I say, 100 or 32? 100 units. 100 units. I got 100 units and I got another, I could get another $25. If I raise the rents $25, that doesn't cost me any money, right? So I'm going to be like times $2,500 a month. 100 times 25 is 100 times the 0.90, because I'm only getting 90% of my, $2,250 a month. Times the 12, bang, cha-bang, $27,000. $25 got me a $27,000 double. The thing was NOI, and at 24, I get another $25, just $25. And the NOI explodes from 24 grand a year all the way to plus 27, 51,000, okay? That means my bump, my $25 bump, by the way, I'm looking for properties guys are selling where they don't need to raise the rents. Always look for a seller that doesn't need to raise the rents. What does that guy look like? His cost basis is so low, he doesn't even want to bother with 25 because he's just gushing cash right now. He paid so little so long ago that he's like, I don't need to add $20. I'm already making so much money. So look for 25, do a column, 25. What does $50 get me? What does $75 get me? Without me doing anything. Okay? I just want a rent bump. I want to breathe on the place. Raise the rents. If not, you're buying something that's at full market rents. If you don't see any future for a rent increase of $25, then you're buying something at full market rents. And that would indicate that your property today, next year, and the year after might not have any place to grow. Now, long term, if you look out the way we do, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, I don't need a rent bump like that today. But I always look for properties that I can, even brand new deals. I'm buying a brand new deal right now. I think I can raise the rents $25 to $50 when I go into it. S, have a solid exit plan for the property. The exit is vital to knowing how you will finally sell the property or how you will refinance it and capture the upside of the property. By the way, the refinance thing is like huge. It's a way to exit without exiting. It's a way to capture your profits from the upside of the property and still own it, okay? I'll be going over that as well, which is like magic. Are you going to sell in 3 to 5 years or 7 years or 10 years? When you do, what can you expect to get for a price? By the way, what price will that allow, at that price, what would that allow the next buyer to have as an effective return? And how is he going to get a loan? Oh, by the way, what are the rates going to be when that happens? Okay? You got to know all that. Have a solid exit plan, including how much, the debt, and what type of buyer would be interested at that time. Okay, T, do an 8% exit calculation. If you're buying property today at a 5 or 6 cap, I want you to figure on the exit at an 8 cap. Figure a price that you can sell at that provides the new buyer, not at an 8 cap, but an 8% return. Figure the price that you can sell to the buyer with debt at an 8% cash-on-cash return. I think, I might be wrong on this, there's no science here, but I think that 8% return for a buyer in the future on real assets is going to become even more desirable than it is today. What price could you sell at in the future that would allow a new buyer to be able to make enough money to warrant his investment and return him or her, or them, 8% per year? If you don't know how to do that calculation, by the way, you're like, how would I figure what a guy has to do in the future to make 8%? I mean, I could figure that calculation. What's your return today? And what would the property have to get to in the future to pay 8%? Okay? And what price would I have to pay for that property for it to pay me 8%? Okay, you. U's for uncle. Everybody knows that. I'm your Uncle G. Have your loan underwriting done by a third party. That's right. Without the influence of your opinion of the deal. Have the loan underwritten by a bank, a lender, a broker, a third party, without them knowing how you underwrote the deal your damn self. Have someone with underwriting experience more than you have. By the way, there's always that guy. Look at your deal to determine how they view it. That's going to cost you money, by the way. Cardone Capital, we spend a lot of money every year just having third parties underwrite deals for me that I'm never going to buy. If you're not willing to spend that money, you know, everybody wants to be the boss. Nobody wants to write the check. Everybody wants to be the boss. Nobody wants to write a check for the invoice. Everybody wants to be the boss until the bills come out. Oh, I don't know if I want to be the boss that bad. Okay, if you can't write a check, you ain't a boss. So, use a third party to help you underwrite your deals. V. V is for victory, baby. Use your worst case scenario on the income so you can have a victory. Do not be overly optimistic when it comes to future income. Don't be overly optimistic when it comes to rent increases. Don't be overly optimistic when it comes to anything. Bad things happen to good people every damn day. Don't be surprised when it happens. Okay? Use the worst case scenario so you're not surprised. I never underwrite my deals with rent increases. I know they're coming. I know they'll happen. I know for sure in the future rent will be higher in 10 years than it is today. If your deal only makes sense because you're going to get a rent increase, it does not make dollars. And if it doesn't make sense, it ain't going to make money. W. W is for whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, know the cost per door of the expenses on the properties in your market, excluding the taxola. Okay, know the cost per door of the expenses. What is the norm per door for your 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010 product, even your brand new product? What's it cost in Houston, Texas to operate a property? What's it cost in Phoenix? What's it cost in Columbus, Georgia, Columbus, Alabama, Columbus, Ohio? What's it cost per door to operate a deal? $6,700, $8,800. Silicon Valley, it might cost $12,000 per unit. Find out the cost per door, average cost per door in your market, and use that number to calculate, even if you know you can operate below that. X. Underwrite your deal assuming that all debt, including promises to partners, hard money, banks, and all principal and interest are calculated when figuring your free cash flow. Even if the lender or the investors don't require a principal pay down, underwrite your deal assuming they do. Now, what you're going to hear in this A to Z is I'm constantly being overly pessimistic on a deal that I love. Okay? Why am I doing that? I'm not looking for reasons not to buy something here. I'm looking for reasons to buy it. But I need to know I'm going to be with this thing, okay? Look, I got property that I've owned longer than I've been married. Okay, I've been married 15 years. I had one piece of property 16 years. So, that property went through a lot of stuff. Most of it was great. Most of it was never a problem. But there was that one year where, oh my God, I got to go back and spend money on it, okay? So underwrite your deals, assuming all the debt, all promises to partners, all principal and interest is being figured when calculating your cash flow. Why? Assume 2 years of break even and no cash flow. Okay, now I've never been through this, but I'm going to tell you what to do here. Assume 2 years that you're going to break even and not have any cash flow. If you can get through those 2 years, you're going to make money on this deal. This can happen, by the way, and no one wants to confront these kind of situations. Nobody ever wants to talk about them before they happen. They're like, oh yeah, if the market pulls back really bad, I'm going to be a buyer then. You're not going to be a buyer then. You're not even a buyer now, okay? The question is going to be, can you even hold on for 2 years when the world goes to hell? You don't want to lose a great property because the values came down or because something traumatic happened in the marketplace. You don't want to lose a great property because you weren't able to get through 24 months. I've never lost a property because I always plan for the worst case scenario. Ask yourself, if this property broke even for 2 years, would you still want it in your portfolio? If the answer is no way, don't buy it. Simple. So assume 2 years of break even and no cash flow. Z. By the time you've checked off each of the above, Z is for Zeus. Move on the deal. You have found a godlike property. If you can check off everything to Z, it's time to roll. You found the Zeus. You found the jewel. You found something special. Buy the deal. Move as fast as you can. Run. Run as fast as you can to get your debt, to get your money together, to secure the property. Write an LOI. Give them some damn money and let's go. The biggest mistake you're going to make in real estate is not investing in it. The second biggest mistake is not moving fast enough once you find a godlike deal. Oh, by the way, if you do find a monster, okay, don't call me about 32 units though. Call me about 320 units. Call me about a monster. Call me about a deal. Check off this list. Call me up. I'll review the deal. I'll tell you what I might do. I might invest in the deal with you. I might become your P for partner.